go up and we can grab our pistol, we can grab our cube, and then we can show them both on the screen at the same time. Cool. Hey everyone, welcome back to a new video. So in this one we're going to take another look at UMG HUDs and how you can create VR HUDs, as well as some communication stuff for sending information from, let's say, actors, such as the cubes or pistols, to the display so you can actually see it updated in real time. I've done videos in the past on UMG HUDs, and the code from that still works in 5.3. However, I'm not going to cover that section in this video because I kind of want to just jump straight into it. So we're not going to be setting up a movement sway so it won't take into account player v-interps and everything else. We're just going to jump straight in. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a new folder in our VR template, and we're going to start by creating a UMG. So UMG folder stands for Unreal Motion Graphics, and in here we're going to create a user interface, and that is going to be a widget blueprint. We're going to select user widget, and we're going to call this widget BP or WBP underscore HUD master. The reason we're going to do HUD master is because we're going to send different UMG elements to this HUD to be displayed to the player. So we're going to have a couple of UMGs at the end. So inside of HUD master, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the canvas panel. The reason I'm using the canvas panel is because it's easier for me to lay stuff out for the tutorial. However, if you have the time and you're trying to make something a bit better and more performant, let's say you're working on a mobile VR project, you will want to use a border as it doesn't calculate each frame, whereas the canvas panel updates on the refresh rate of the headset. So it's a very expensive calculation to use the canvas panel, and using a border works. One thing you can do actually is wrap the canvas panel in a retainer box, and what that retainer box will do is allow you to modify how often it actually calculates and updates on the screen and refreshes. So this is one way you can actually optimize a canvas panel. If you hover over the retainer box inside of optimization, you'll see the retainer box renders children widgets to a render target first before later rendering to that render target to the screen. This allows both frequency and phase to be controlled so that the UI can actually render less often than the frequency of the main game render. It also has the side benefit of allowing materials to be applied to the render target before drawing the widgets to apply a simple post-processing. So you can do quite a lot with this actually, and it's definitely worth checking out. I won't be going into it anymore in this one. We're just going to use it as a retainer. I just wanted to point that out. If I'm using the canvas panel and I'm telling you not to use it, I might as well show you how you can actually use it and then benefit as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a simple button to our screen, and because this is a player HUD, we want to use the center. So anchor center point. If you set everything towards the center of your HUD, it'll actually scale correctly in the headset. It gives you more control over it. As with a standard 2D display, you can use different anchor point locations. They don't really translate all that well to VR, so just keep that in mind. I always set my hierarchy elements, buttons and such to be centered, and then in this case I can actually set the alignment to 0.5 and change the location to be the center of the screen. So this is going to be our HUD. Let's add some text. Same thing, we're going to set this to center, and then I'm going to set this as player HUD 0.5, 0, and then I can use the position for Y to move this up, and then we can also scale the font up just so we can actually see whereabouts it is. Unnecessary, but we can see it in the viewport better than just a tiny little button. So I'm going to dock this, and what we're going to do is we're going to look at adding this UMG HUD element to our player. So if we go to blueprints and then VR pawn, what we can do is we can actually go down to camera. I've already got one because my engine crashed, so I restart the tutorial. We're going to select our camera, and we're going to go to add, and then widget, and then with widget selected, we're going to call this widget player HUD. We're doing this because we can actually call this component from other actors, which I'll show you how to do soon. And now what we're going to do is we're going to add our widget class. So if we go to viewport, we can see it's on our camera. And if we go to widget class, we can select our widget blueprint underscore HUD master. So with that done, we can see that we've added it in. We can't see our text. That's because our draw size is too small. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to our widget blueprint underscore HUD. I'm going to go to fill screen. And I'm going to change this to custom. And instead we're going to do this as 1200 by 600. It's normally a pretty good resolution to use. And then we can actually move the text down so we can see it. Cool. So now in VR Porn, we can actually see that's in there. So we change this to 1200 by 600. We can see that we've got the whole thing on the screen. What we want to do is we want to move this forward and then rotate on the Z by 180. So now when we're in the scene, it'll be in front of our camera. What I'm going to do is I'm going to also scale this down. So I'm actually scaling the widget itself down. It typically gives you a little bit of a better resolution as well. So 0.5, 0.5, 0.5. And now if we hit compile, file all, and save, what we can do is we can hop back into VR preview and we can see that the HUD is now on the screen. It is a little bit off center. That's because the VR preview uses the left eye or the right eye. Depends on what you've got it set to. So there's no camera in the middle of the screen or in the middle of the headset, so it's going to be slightly off center. But if you hop into the headset, you can drop in and you'll find that it actually lines up pretty damn well. It's almost, it is exactly center. So how do we fix the text blocking through the environment? Because we're a HUD, this is going to be displayed and rendered in front of everything. What you can do is we can open up our VR Porn, select the widget component, and then look for the material. What I do is I use the folder to find the material, and then we open this up. What we want to do is we want to follow this down the parent hierarchy, essentially. So parent is widget 3D pass-through opaque. We're going to select that one, keep going down until we find the widget 3D pass-through. So this is the original material that we can see here, and this is what we're going to copy. So the reason I'm not modifying the materials here is because this is the engine materials. If I make a change to my widget 3D pass-through material here, it's going to update that for every single project that is linked to this version of Unreal. So you don't want to do that. It will just be some bad results. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag widget 3D pass-through to my materials folder in my project, and I'm going to say copy here. Once that's done, we can go in, and then we can actually rename this to widget 3D pass-through, and then call this HUD. And if we open it up, what I'm going to do is I'm going to search for depth in the details panel, and we want to do disable depth test. If we hit apply and then we jump back in, you'll see that the player HUD does not appear on front, and that is because in VR Porn I didn't actually change the material itself. So let's just drag this material into VR Porn, drag it on, and we can pop it in. So now this time when I press play, we can see that the player HUD actually appears as it's meant to. It's on the screen, it's in front of everything, and we can see it, which is super cool. So that is essentially how you create a VR HUD. It's super simple. You can add whatever information you want to the screen now and go from there. So how do we actually add some information? Let's say we want to do a notification prompt. We pick up an object. We want to say, okay, notify the player we picked this up. There's quite a few different ways of doing it. I'll let you decide on the best route because it might depend on your project. But I'm going to show you the logic to set that up and how we can actually communicate. So what we're going to need is we're going to need a new UMG. That's basically our notification prompt. So in this case, I'm going to do user interface, widget blueprint, user widget, and I'm going to call this WBP underscore item notification. So let's do the same setup. We're going to do a retainer or a retainer box, and then we're going to have a canvas panel. This could actually, wait there, we're going to do this as an actual border because we don't need that much space and it can be quite small. So fill screen, custom, let's say this is going to be 200 by 100, but actually works pretty well. And then for the brush, we want to set this to rounded, just makes it look a little bit nicer. And then fixed radius, and we'll change this to 10. Cool, we can have the border. Don't need to worry about that. Not going to do anything super special. We just want to be able to see it on the screen. And then what we can do is we can add a text. Actually, I'm going to do a horizontal, vertical. We'll do a vertical box, if I can remember whereabouts they are. Let's just search for it. Vertical box. We're going to clear the padding so it fits the full thing. Or we might do 5 to bring it in slightly, which should be good. Fill. And then we can have a text block which is centered, and we'll do fill, and then we'll do center. I was going to do a title and then the name of the item, but we'll just do it one We'll just do the 1 for now. So with the text, we're going to set this to a variable, which means we can actually update the text and change what's being posted. And we'll say this is item text is probably a good one. Item underscore txt. So now in our graph, we can access this. For this one, we're just going to do a custom event. We're not going to do anything super special. We're just going to do a custom event. I'm going to call this set text or set item text. Cool. So now what we do is we can drag in our text box or our text we want to modify, and we'll do set text. And we want to do widget set text bracket text. We plug this into our custom event. We can then add our text value into the custom event. So if we call this from another blueprint, we can then send information to this one. And the goal is, what we're going to do is we're going to add our item notification to the HUD master and then set the information in it. So we're going to kind of pass it down the line. So now what we can do is we can do a vertical box. Let's say this is on the left side of the screen. Set this to center, and we'll keep this like so. So what will happen is if we add a new item notification, it's going to stack up here, and then we'll be able to see the name of it, and we can take a look at how we can get rid of those afterwards as well. Cool. So this is where working with UMG and HUDs can get a little bit confusing. We've got to kind of work backwards. So we know that we're going to grab an object. We're going to grab an object. We're going to have to get the player. We're going to have to get the HUD, and we're going to spawn a UMG and place it inside of the notification box, which is going to be here, the vertical box, and then we kind of got to pass it online. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the vertical box as the notification box, and then I'm going to set this to is a variable because we want to add a child to it. And in the graph, what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete all of these, and we'll create a custom event. Actually, what we might be able to do, let me try this. We're going to do an event begin play, or we'll do an event construct because begin play doesn't exist with UMG, and we're going to create an event dispatcher. So this dispatcher is going to be called add notification. I'm going to say assign, and then we're going to listen. So on begin play, when the HUD is created, we're going to create a event dispatcher. If you don't understand how these work, I do have a video on the channel, which I'll also link in the description. It'll explain it in a lot more depth. But it's basically a messaging system between different blueprints, and they work extremely well for UMG. So add notification event. We're going to take our notification box, we're going to get, and we're going to say add child to the widget panel, add child, and then we've got the content we want to add. In this case, we're going to create a widget, and that widget is going to be our notification, item notification, which we can plug into content and then add child. However, in between these, what we're going to have to do is set the information inside of our notification. So what name of the actor are we grabbing are we going to push through? To do that, we can just drag off this and do set item text. So this is calling the widget, the custom event inside of the widget. And now any text that is displayed in here once this fires is going to get added to the item notification and added to our child. So inside of our notification event dispatcher, it's going to be handy to add a text because that's what we're adding in here. So text, let's just do that and plug that in like so. I'm going to right click on this custom event and I'm just going to do refresh nodes. That way it updates the event dispatcher and we can hit compile. Now that we've added the notification box, we need a way to send information from different actors in our player to this HUD. What we could do is we could do something like in the VR pawn, get widget player HUD and then get user widget object and then cast to widget blueprint HUD master, and then we could tell it to do something through here. But we want to kind of avoid using cast nodes where possible because it just restricts how we can work. And one way to do that is to use blueprint interfaces. So blueprint interfaces, and then in this BPI underscore UMG elements is what we'll call it. And what this will do is it'll act as a middleman to send information between blueprints as long as we have a correct reference. So BPI widget elements, we're going to say new function. This is going to be a notification, HUD notification. That's what we're going to use this one for. And then inside of our widget blueprint HUD master, we can go to our graph, class settings, and then we can add the implemented interface. So what did I call it? BPI UMG elements. BPI underscore UMG elements. Cool. I'm going to hit compile. And we can see here that our interface actually has HUD notification. We can't drag that in, it's not going to let us, but we can search for event HUD notification, which means any information sent through this, we can tell our HUD to do something. And what we need text. The actors or the player that's sending information to the HUD master is going to require text, and we can go through that. So inside of BPI UMG elements, we're going to update our function to have a input of text, and this is going to be item name, and we're just going to hit compile. So once we compile this, we'll see that it actually updates inside of our HUD master, so we get item name. Now what we can do is we can actually use this to create our UMG inside of this player HUD box. So when our event fires, we're not firing it just yet, we haven't set up that logic, we'll come back to that, but we get our notification box, making sure that it actually is a variable, and we're going to search for add child. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new UMG, and then we're going to add it to this box as a child. In this case, we don't need a widget component, we just need to do create widget, and we're going to say get the class is going to be item notification. And because that item notification needs text as well, we're going to do the return value. I'm going to say we're going to search for the custom event we created, which was set item text, plug that into add child, and then the return value is going to go into context. So our event HUD notification creates a widget blueprint item notification widget, which then we set the text inside of, and then we add it to the HUD master as a child. So think of this HUD as controlling everything. It's literally the master, it's going to have the logic, and then this spawns the widgets in. So what we can do now is, let's say our cubes, we want to say when we grab our cubes, get the widget, play the notification. So we're going to open up our browse asset, or we're going to open up a cube by going to browse asset. We're going to select the grab component, and in this case we're going to do onGrabbed, and then we're going to have this fire our message. So we're going to do, let's say onGrabbed call HUD notification, so HUD notification message, and now we need a target. This right now doesn't know where it's being sent to, so we need to tell it that the widget component inside of the player is where we're going. And one way to do that is actually do get player pawn. We're doing get player pawn because that is the class, parent class of our character or our player. If you have a character class, you would do get character instead. So it would be get player character. And what this allows us to do is get components inside of this player. So we want to do get component by class. We want just the one component because we know we've only got one HUD. So then we can search down and we look for our widget component, and that will get our HUD. And to make it super simple, all we have to do is get widget. So what we're doing here is we're getting the player pawn, we're getting the widget component from the player. If you have more than one, you might have to do some checks to make sure you're getting the correct widget component. But then we get the widget from that component, and then we pass it through to HUD notification. So I've already put some text in here, so this is going to be grabbable cube. If I spell it horrifically wrong, there we go. So now what happens is when I go into the project, we can see everything in here. We can teleport over to our cubes, and when we grab one, it now gives us a notification that says grabbable cube, and then pops those in like so, and then it's going to stack up. So what we want to do is then remove these, and the way to do that would be inside of our BPI item notification that just says set item text. Once we've done, we can then do a delay. So we can say a delay for 0.5 seconds, or let's say 1 second is probably more reasonable. Completed for remove from parent, and target is just going to be self. So now if we jump back in, what we do is make this full screen so everybody can see it. Hopefully it displays on here, should be fine. Then we can go up and then grab an object, and we can see that it adds it in there, and then after a second it deletes it and then goes through. So what we're doing essentially is we've got our VR pawn, which has a widget component attached to it with a custom material to stop it from clipping through the world, and that widget component has a master, a HUD master. So the HUD master in the designer just has a random button which we can't interact with because it's a HUD. We don't have a widget interaction. You don't typically interact with stuff on the HUD anyway. So we got that and some text, and the main thing here is we have a notification box, which is just a vertical box which is set to a variable, which means we can access it from the event graph. Inside the event graph, we have a blueprint interface, which we created, UMG elements, and what that allows us to do is act as a middleman between different blueprints. I highly recommend watching some videos on blueprint interfaces. I have a couple on the channel as well, but that interface allows us to send data, in this case an item name, to a created widget blueprint that we're creating, which we set the text inside of, and then we add the child. So we've got VR Pawn is part 1, the HUD master is technically 2, and then 3, and then we add it to the HUD, which is essentially what this add child notification box is doing. The widget blueprint item notification is told to set the text, and then after 1 second, it removes itself from the player HUD. So you can kind of go through now and then add any information in that you want and position it how you want it. So if you're not happy with that, we can move this up. Let's say it's going to happen there. We can remove wrong one. Let me get rid of the button. Player text. This could be something like player name. So you could have a keyboard that this is stored inside of from the game instance, and then that populates making mistakes. So player HUD. You could then have something like a progress bar to represent player health. Let's do this position 2500, 250. That's way off. 250, 500, center. There we go. Position, size. I'm not worried about it being perfect. But then we got a health bar of some kind that we could feed values into as well. So we have that. And then let's say we want to take the VR widget and we want to make it look a little bit cooler. What we could do is we could take the geometry mode and set this to cylinder, and we could curve this a little bit. They're going to let me. There we go. Bring that in. And then I'm going to double check the colors because the colors are a little bit off, which is, yeah, it should be red. Let's have a look. And it's showing up pink on the screen. So what is happening there is, it's worth pointing out, is inside of the widget, we can apply gamma correction. So that should, if we do compile, fix it. If not, nope, it's still pink. That'll be down to the material. We can actually go into here. So this is something you don't really see a lot of. Into emissive, we can do a power node, multiply base, plug that into emissive. And then we might have changed the value for the exponent down a little bit, but we can then see now that's actually red. So that's one way to do it if your UMG is a different color. And now we're in here. Now we're in the headset. We can actually have different colors. We can go up and we can play our notification points super easily. We don't have anything for a gun, so let's just do something really quick for that. And again, that is incredibly simple to do. We're just doing a get player pawn, get component by class, and then widget. So we can actually copy all of this, and then we can go to our pistol. So blueprint pistol, and we can say on grabbed component snap, delete that, and we can say pistol component file save all. And now when we hop in, go up, and we can grab our pistol, we can grab our cube, and then we can show them both on the screen at the same time. Cool. And it's kind of up to you how you want to do it, or where you want to go with it there. Not everything has to be passed through from the player. So the UMG, basically here, the progress bar, could be done as a health bar, and then that could be controlled via your game instance in some form, or by the players. You name it, you can have different things sent to the HUD and do different, basically do what you want with the HUD and send information back and forth. So hopefully this has been helpful. This was requested a lot by Patreons, so if you've got any suggestions and you want to see them turn into tutorials, make sure to head over there. Every little bit helps, and I can't say a big enough thank you to all of you who are subscribed to the Patreon. And we'll see all your names at the end, but just before we wrap up, I want to say big thank you to everyone for watching, and make sure to head over to the Discord, where if you've got any questions, we can make sure we help you out and give them an answer. Awesome. Hi everyone. Bye.